All right, we are live. Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming to the Out Loud podcast in conjunction with Red or Green Books Out Loud Anthology. What we do here is we highlight different queer or otherwise part of the alphabet mafia um, artists and poets, give them a chance to get their work out there, but also let you know about what they've got going on. Today, we have March Penn. You have Penn written down as March Penn. Okay. March
Yes,
Penn is with us today. From what I hear, a regular at the Cantab Lounge out in Massachusetts, right?
yes.
All right. We're going to be interviewing them, and then they will have 15 minutes to display some of their work as well. So let's just get right into it. How's your day going? How was the holidays?
Great. Yeah, I finished some crafting today and my partner and I put up the tree and we ate some leftovers and it was a chill day. How was your day?
Sounds great. Pretty much the same. I didn't put up a tree, but I did eat leftovers and just kind of hang out with my cats. I'm a crazy cat lady. What can I say? But yeah, it's been a great week so far. I do want to say for our listeners out there, on YouTube or on Spotify, this time of year is difficult for some people, especially within our community. So I just want to let you know that you're not alone. Feel free to reach out to me if you need to. Even if I don't know you, I'm here. I sleep a lot, so I might be asleep, but when I wake up, I'm here. Okay. Um, now, so one of the first things about you that I read is that you founded the Self-Educating Poet Network. Is that correct? Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's the DIY MFA and from that it emerged into the Self-Educating Poets Network because it became more than just a Zoom meeting of poets. It became a literary magazine and a website.
Okay. And I'm going to say it caught me off because I know Massachusetts is one of our most educated states in the USA, from what they said. And I know there's always this kind of battle between the college educated poets and then the street poets. Um, and I feel like you were trying to bridge that gap. Am I incorrect with that?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's a response to how expensive it is to get an MFA and how it's possible to take those kind of resources and workshops and make it totally free. And so it's an effort to do that. I don't oppose people getting formal education. Of course, I always encourage that. But it's hard and everyone has access and anyone can be a poet, and it's important for people to have those opportunities.
Absolutely. And it's great that you're making it more accessible to others to be poets as well. I appreciate that. You said that it led to a journal. Now, is this the gingerbread ritual that I read about, or is this a different one?
Yes, it's Gingerbread Ritual. We had a meeting of folks in DIY MFA, and at one point we were just kind of throwing ideas out there. And I think Jade said, "What about Gingerbread Ritual?" And we're talking about band names, but I was like, I want that to be a literary journal.
It's awesome. It's awesome. So as editor, what would you say the aesthetic for the journal is? Is does it just accept all poets, or what do you kind of look for?
I'm interested in work that has a tenderness toward humanity. I want to know what the person's relationship to what they're saying is. I don't like abstract political stuff if I don't understand why the person is saying it. I'm interested in poets who are developing their voice. They don't have to be, writing at their best game. The idea is that you show your process of developing. And right now, we're actually looking for more submissions. So if you go to selfeducatingpoetsnetwork.org, you can find the information about submissions. And I believe submissions are due the first week of January. And I would love to publish some new poets.
All right, all right. Well, y'all heard that. Get out there and get those submissions in. Um, so aside from making poetry accessible to the community, what is poetry to you on a personal level? You write your own poetry, of course. You have a book with Game Over Publishing, is that it? Game Over Books.
Yes, Game Over Books. Definitely check out gameoverbooks.com. So many great authors. Of course, I'm a little bit biased, but they do publish a range of all different voices in the poetry community, and I definitely recommend checking them out. And I got involved in poetry, I would say, when I moved to Boston. I started going to poetry slams just as an audience member. I felt really intimidated. I'm very introverted, and I didn't think I could do poetry slam, but I love poetry, so I just listened for like 7 years. And I did open mics, and I just kept going from there. And I finally, in the last few years, gotten myself to like do poetry slam as well as open mics. And I just kept working on this manuscript because basically I was diagnosed with autism and I didn't know my whole life that I had that issue going on and I had a lot of struggles. And so I used poetry as a way to kind of understand what my experience is like and be able to learn how to express that to others.
Okay. Okay. And I think I did see somewhere that neurodiversity was something, one of the main topics that you talk about. What is the title of that book?
Great. My book is called Green Antelope Fire, and you can find it with Game Over Books. It's my first full-length collection, and I struggled for over 5 years with rejections, and I didn't think it would ever get published. And I just kept changing it and updating it, and it finally got accepted, and I was so thrilled.
Yes, I bet it's amazing being able to hold something like that in your hands after so long. I recently published my own book and with Red or Green, who it also runs this Zoom, and it's an amazing feeling when you get to hold that in your hands and give it to other people so they can, you know, take it in as well. Um, so again, we are a queer Alphabet Mafia podcast. Um, for yourself, how would you say that your identity, whatever that may be, uh, other than, I know you spoke about neurodiversity and things like that, how does it find its way into your work or the things that you do for the community?
Yeah, I noticed that a theme of your podcast is either the concept of coming out or kind of how people are relating to their identities in the LGBTQ community. And thank you so much for starting this kind of dialogue. I love this podcast. During the pandemic, I felt kind of lonely. I think like a lot of people lost queer community if they had it ever. And so I went online and I found a lot of podcasts and I was listening to queer people tell their stories. And so when I got to listen to this podcast, I was like, this is exactly what I'm always looking for. Um, so in terms of my identities, the first time I tried to understand it, I was like 18 or 19 and I identify as queer. And that was because I felt a lot of confusion about gender and sexuality, and I didn't feel like it was straightforward. I knew I was attracted to women, but I'd sometimes had some feelings for men, and I also had no language at the time, but I'm attracted to non-binary people and trans people of all different gender identities. So that was kind of the beginning for me, was 18, 19 years old, understanding that. And it was very terrifying because I had struggled my whole life with social connection. And so I really didn't know how to come out. And I don't know if I was ever totally successful, to be honest, but I really tried. And I got to meet other queer people. And I felt like maybe not always, but frequently they were more understanding of differences. And I really appreciated that. And I had good social experiences for the first time in my life. And then later on in my late 20s and into my 30s, I met more people who are identifying as non-binary, gender fluid, gender queer, things like that. And so I started identifying that way, which is, it's always tricky when you identify i- in a way that's different than how people might perceive things. So that's something I still continue to navigate and try to understand.
Right. No, I definitely understand it. It's definitely a process. I think that's why we call it fluidity because it's always changing and doing its own thing. Millie rocking through the spectrum there. I'm trying to think. In your book, do you highlight any of that kind of discussion with yourself, or that idea of coming out in any way?
Yeah, I do. I have a poem where I go camping with a partner, and everyone is kind of assuming that we're lesbians because maybe visibly that's what people think. And the sort of awkwardness of being at a campground where everyone else at least is presenting as a straight couple. And then at the end of the poem, I sort of merge with the ocean and the fluidity of sexuality because I we were going camping in a place that was close to the ocean. So that's one example. And then I have a poem called Awkward Sex versus No Sex that kind of explores like what is sex as a queer person and how you have to reinvent it and how ultimately like sex is creative and there's like no one definition and nobody actually knows what it is. So those are some examples. And then I'm also dealing with kind of the intersection between neurodiversity and gender variance and kind of the ways that both of those things overlap. I mean, it's incredibly hard to communicate when you're an autistic non-binary person and you don't know that you are. And it's like you have a story that you don't even know that you are experiencing, and how bizarre it is to eventually find out about that and to try to put that into words. And so there's a lot of kind of mystery in my poems where I'm slowly emerging into awareness.
And that's it's funny that you say that, because I was going to ask, especially finding out about your diagnosis later in life. Um, did that feel like another sort of coming out for you? Um, not in regards to your queer, but into your identity altogether, just as a person, being able to put a name to something that you may have been feeling. I feel like that there's probably a resemblance there, or am I off track with that?
Yes, and I notice so many people who are seeking a diagnosis, they're seeking to understand how they are psychologically. And I just want to say that, you know, it is a privilege that I was finally diagnosed, and it took a really long time because access to that and awareness of that is not always there. And I respect people's self-diagnosis, and I think it's usually right. But I personally wouldn't have been able to do that, and it was because I worked with a therapist and I was able to kind of began to heal from so much trauma that I had because how my brain works is so often not what's expected and it creates a lot of challenges. I think it's also hard to put it all on one person. Like, I don't think it's just that some people are autistic. I think we just live in a society, unfortunately, that so often acts like certain realities don't exist. And because of that, it creates these like shock waves within a person, like, oh no, I'm this like kind of different. But it's not that you're different, it's that your existence hasn't been acknowledged.
Absolutely. And I love that idea, because with any portion of how we choose to identify ourselves. We've been seeing that a lot lately. Like they say, oh, there wasn't this many autistic kids when I was growing up. Or they say there wasn't this many trans people growing up. And I think the truth is, yes, we're now finding ways to define the different parts of us that exist that we didn't know how to define before. Um, so I think that's very important. And I do thank you for talking about it. I know it's a little personal as well, but I think a lot of people struggle with that. And you said something um, that I resonated with, where you said, when you're just slightly outside of the what's considered societal norm, it sends ripples through you, right? And for myself, I felt that as a child growing up, being a mass presenting person, like, oh, I'd rather play basketball. And everyone's like, well, girls don't do that. You know what I mean? And that makes you like, it forms who you are, because you feel like you're not um, a part of what people consider the norm, even though it's not necessarily the norm. Um, so thank you for your story. Um, Now, Jeff Taylor, who is the one who suggested I get in touch with you. I love Jeff. He's a great, great guy. Um, he said that that's where he said he you did a lot with the can tab as well. So you do a lot of the open mics there. Um, do you do mostly like online or you were in person? I know they do both online and in person there, but do you travel? How are you getting your poetry out there?
Yes, I do both online and in person. So in person, I love going to Boston Poetry Slam events, and I'm so fortunate to live in a city where that's available. I've lived in many places where that's not possible. And so I also do online events. DIY MFA is almost exclusively online. It's on Zoom. We've had people join from other states and other countries. I have to always clarify that it's Eastern Standard Time. But it is important to me to make sure that these opportunities are available, you know, all over the place and to just be a model of how to organize and to learn from other organizers. So for me, going to the open mic and being a part of Boston Poetry Slam community, it isn't just about being a poet and sharing my work on the mic. It's about meeting other poets and being able to create work together and also create community together. I mean, these folks are people who I've known sometimes for over a decade, and we show up to activist events together. We protest together. We make food for each other if somebody's sick. So there's so many ways that we're pressured to not make community, to not build connection with others. And especially as an autistic person, I've been sort of blamed for like not making enough connection. And I really think that that doesn't make any sense to me because I feel like I am a community organizer and that I need connection that is different than what I often have available. And so Poetry Slam community has helped me create that different world.
That's awesome. Definitely. And sometimes it's nice to hear the good side of the slam community because so much, I do slam as well, but so much it gets so negative so quick. So I'm always happy to hear people who have positive experiences with slam. Um, and you said building community, taking care of each other. If you had to put a definition to community, what would be your definition?
That's a great question. I think it's so challenging because I want to acknowledge that a lot of people have heartbreak over the fact that they're having trouble connecting with community and that a lot of our lives are manipulated to not do it. And so I think that for me, community is just meeting like one person at a time because I'm better at one-on-one interactions. I'm
Mhm.
not very good at group interactions, but it's meeting one person at a time and it's more about the feeling that you have and the willingness to like really hear somebody and to feel close and to share that closeness. And sometimes the closeness is more like one person feels it and the other doesn't. And I think that that can still be valuable as long as, you have good communication. You can look up to a poet sometimes, and I've had so many poet mentors who I think had a profound effect on me, but like maybe like they weren't that interested in my work. And I think that that's okay because it also has gone the other way around. And so for me, community is not always about having to be 100% horizontal, but about being able to have like that really intense emotions. Like I really care about these people, and this is what's keeping me going.
So you opened up Pandora's box. I didn't do it. You did it. Who are some of those poets that you idolize or that were on that list for you?
That's such a great question. So early on in going to poetry slams and stuff, Brian S. Ellis was one of my favorite poets, and he's an amazing performer. He writes a lot about like being working class and his like daily life at his job. And he has this poem where, because he worked at a grocery store and he just stacks up all these carts and he makes this like mountain with other employees of carts. And it seems absurd, but the poem is, I was just like, yeah, I want to write about my ordinary life. I want to write about that. And then, another one to highlight would be Patricia Smith, who's I think one of the most like famous poets in the United States, or should be. And she was one of the founders of Cantab Boston Poetry Slam experience. And of course, is a founder of Green Mill, which is the origin of slam poetry. And whenever she features, she talks about the history and how, slam poetry is a Black American art form. And she talks about the Great Migration and the history there. And she's just such a powerhouse of a poet. And I can't write like her, and I don't even try, but it's more like how she moves me and makes me, love poetry more.
So yeah, she's great. She's definitely on my list as well.
Yeah.
All right, so we've come to the 6:30 time. We're 2 minutes close to it. So at this time, I normally give you 15 minutes to do your thing. If you want to feature poetry, that's great. If you have art that you want to, that's great as well. Definitely promote yourself and things in that time.
Great. Yeah. So I'm going to be reading a couple of poems from my book that is out this year from Game Over Books. So go to gameoverbooks.com. Highly recommend it. My book is called Green Antelope Fire, and it's a lot about my journey with realizing I'm autistic and trying to understand what that means. So this poem is called Dear Researchers. Dear researchers who study how the autistic eye is more reactive to the darkness around an image, all images draw up from the darkness. Empty is not empty, but a canopy of pockets where time circles itself, golden with egg. Q&A. I Roll Literary Magazine wants to publish poems about otherness, but they want the otherness to be doing something other than otherness. And at the same time, they want the otherness to be obvious. I'm totally confused and anxious that my poems about autism don't fit what they are looking for, and this triggers an emotional spiral about how my poetry isn't good enough. I finally got the keys to the house I've been living in for over 30 years. There's grief in that. Grief so deep it's hard to make my autism ride a bicycle or hold on to the fin of a dolphin. A professor who I took an online class with during the pandemic said about form poetry, learn the rules so that you can break them. What is stressed versus unstressed when my sensory processing makes every syllable its own intense stress? Everything too loud, everything already screaming. If I can't learn the rules and I only break them, question. How do you say my intuitive frameworks don't match the way things are in the world? Answer. You don't for a long time. A musician I like talks about being masculine of center on a podcast, but I don't know how to have a center. When I was young, everything turned dark blue, an internal ocean, painfully zinging with a surfacing light. How I come out of nowhere with no warning, accompanied by a flat affect. Observations delivered from folks using a singular prompt. Offer advice that no one asked for. That's a common theme in my work is talking about all these forms of advice. I'm not saying that advice can't be useful, and obviously having poetry mentors is important, but when you think about all the little pieces of advice people have tried to give you, sometimes it actually is something that is worth shrugging off. I'm going to read, I have a couple of love poems for my partner, Ray. We moved in together at the end of July, and it's going very well, and that's exciting for me because I've had a lot of ups and downs. So this is called A Love Poem for Ray. I like forgetting that plot exists while holding your hand at Dyke March. I like the big, soft waves of your hair. I never thought I would say this, but I like when clouds take over my body. Let's make a mess if it wards off dissociating. I like kissing you, a fellow non-binary person. I like that a cave inside a cave is just another place to build a fire for shadow puppets. I like that you offer headphones to help my sensory overload. I like that I meet your therapist for the first time at Dyke March, the one who supports you with us moving in together. I like that everyone I know already at Dyke March is a Cantab poet. I like that your friend has the same undercut as you. I like that they say they are glad to have met me, even though I don't know what you two talked about. I like that fragments are small gems, like moments with you. I like that we are DIY together and that you host craft gatherings. I like that you make the sky wide ruled paper and blue fingernails. I like that the surface loosens into gloss. I like that my body is a blue room and you have blue paint all over you. I like that our conversations are experiments in what is possible. I like that you live improv. I like how the pillow that holds your head whispers to the moon, and you can't stop waking up to hear the night's secret poetry. I like that you desire to learn the world's languages. I like the blue apple you balance on your head and open like a book. Okay, this is part two, another love poem for Ray. I love that you think cuffing season is when queer people cuff their sleeves and pant legs to show they're gay. I love how since you said that, I too believe in your version of cuffing season. When we go to CVS, you ask the one giving the shots today to please avoid your new tattoo and aim for the open skin in the head of the creature. I love how later the head gets red and puffy as if the creature is starting to grow a face. I can't believe you finish a 1,000-piece puzzle in one night by yourself. I'm so thankful that you want to do all the puzzles while I do none of them. My life is already an impossible puzzle. But when I am being distant, you ask for a hug. I love the weight of your head on my chest, the spiral of your hair tickling my neck. I love the soft bites of potatoes you make in the morning, and how you've gotten me to watch TV shows even though I thought I only liked documentaries with Stephen Hawking. You remind me that life is vast, and that the ways I'm falling apart are still attractive to you. You serenade me with songs. You suddenly turn any phrase into a lyric. You musical improv at all hours and speak multiple languages, finding extra meanings wrapped up in dimensions beyond sensation. You're sleeping as I write this poem, probably having some random anxiety dream, as we both have, because the real dream is being awake in your arms, comforted of my terrors, the myth of a wholeness come to life, how we journey through difficult chaos to meet each other, selves that once weren't ready to exist emerge as the light between us. How am I doing on time? All right,
You are good. You're 6 minutes in.
perfect. I am going to read some more from my book that just came out. And this poem will kind of give you a clue as to how it came to be called Green Antelope Fire. It's called Clearly the Answer is Obvious. The directions say to press the green antelope fire. The choices of buttons are the green, the antelope, the cannon fire, the green fire, the antelope canyon. I scan the list trying to figure out which button to press. I read the directions again. How will I ever decide which button to press? The directions say if I don't know what to do, email the dragon. Dear Dragon, which button do I press to schedule a time for underwater watercolors? Dear person who clearly has no clue, obviously I thought you already knew what to do. In that case, ask someone who has pressed the button before how they press the button. Dear person who has already pressed the button, which button did you press? Dear person who has not already pressed the button, yes, in fact, I have pressed the button before. When I press the button, I press the button. Always press the button related to you by the dragon. If you don't know what to do, ask someone in person or on Zoom. Dear Dragon, I know you said to already know the answer, and I know you said that if I don't, I should ask a person who has already pressed the button before. But I did ask a person who has already pressed the button before, and the person said to ask you. So please, if you will, let me know which button to press. Dear person who has not already pressed the button, what are the options again? I definitely have strong feelings about bureaucracy, about things being too complicated. Um, okay, this is about DIY MFA called Always. We couldn't afford an MFA, so we started a school for poets, completely free and grassroots. We couldn't find a swimming pool that summer, so we swam in a lake deep in the woods, near where you have lived for decades. But now, with the intensity of someone nature deprived, it's absurd. How can we always be nature ourselves and be nature deprived? But of course, Zoom dates could only go so far. The net of freshwater plants tickling our heels and backs as we swam out to Seagull Island. We joked more like bird poop island as we swam back, tickled again, until we could stand up badly with jagged rocks cramping our tender feet. All right, this is a short one. I changed my name because I like a name that's not as gendered. And so this is called Dreaming in the Wrong Month. Knowing my name is a subconscious act, not to be all there for, but to be wavy with. An octopus snow globe, crowded flexibility. I dare against being always called, and now, as if the power to perforate the fabric mesmerizes the enthralled bodies of my body. Um, this is one thing that I struggled with socially. It's just kind of what constitutes like an interest, right? How do you know like what you're interested in and then how that pertains to like when you're interacting with other people? Um, so this is called It's Impossible. Sometimes people start talking about pop culture and they ping pong around things I have never heard of. I sit there drinking water from my glass, wondering how to show I care. Of course, there's always listening, but what am I listening to? What does this mean? I feel stuck in a chaos loop. Why don't I know things? I mean, no one can know everything or even most things, but I'm always that person whose friend made them go to a Red Sox game, even though they spent their recess doodling in the dirt. It wasn't until my third Red Sox game that I realized what was going on, and I started to like it. I wasn't sure what it is. Did I like baseball or did I like having a self that was engaged by something that a lot of other people are engaged by? Um, this one is called experimental prompting. There is a dick-shaped shadow on the wall, and I can't figure out which object is casting it. Oh well, gender is like that. The magic 8 ball predicts I will die in the jaws of an animal that has already gone extinct. Sometimes I am unpersuaded by words or relationships. Thanks for putting up with me, honey bear. I would be a terrific grandfather. I would say to my grandchildren, you know, the original fidget spinner was a rock. I don't know how you handled the pandemic, but I did a lot of Zoom when I was able to, and I even did Zoom dating. So
I
this is
did not do
called
that.
Gothic Zoom Date. I go to sleep thinking about how hot you are, a shimmering witch webbed with poetic alchemy, lounging on an antique sofa, some wood knobs and swirls, as if frozen in a scream, and your ancestors dancing in the dust behind you. The train roaring, a mundane smirk, your black lipstick tracing me back to desire. Though desire is hard to come by online, an abstraction of the original. I want to hold you in person, maybe next week, if we're all well enough then. I like haiku a lot, and this is called love haiku. To love is to build an invisible castle and say you see it. Another short poem. This one is called Sensory Processing from July 2019. I'm saying sensory processing a lot. It's one thing I'm becoming aware of. So I just wanted to mention that we all have different ways of managing our senses. And for some people, senses can be really overwhelming and even feel debilitating. And you might have to wear like sound reduction headphones or really soft clothing. And you might have to take frequent breaks. So when I'm talking about sensory processing, I'm talking about that. Okay. All the beaches in Mississippi are closed due to dangerous red algae. Every last beach. The ocean quits sometimes, even when it looks like it keeps going. We're the same way. One day, secrets will want to quit too, but they'll be already documented. They'll have to come back as a trail mix of ways that creativity is inconvenient. I think one time somebody asked somebody else, what does March write about? And the person was a little confused and then said, social awkwardness. So that's very much this poem, All-Consuming Cure. I love it. In the bear suit, I'm not responsible for my face, and I seem cuddly. When else in life was this possible for me? Never. I have never had a very expressive face or looked cuddly. I look wilted before. My arms hung from my body like languid ropes that have retired from scraping the sea. But now, my face is a bear. Roar! I love my face. Roar! I seem cuddly and cute, and people like to pet me. Ouch! Not like that. Are those raptor claws or those human hands? Ah! I'm alarmed. No, really, this is my alarm face. Oh, I'm still wearing the bear costume, so you don't know. I'm running out of fear. No, I mean I'm fearful, so I'm running. Not that I have a shortage of fear. Oh, this is disorganized. As disorganized as one becomes when a bear enters the scene. So much for thinking everything will be better if I'm in a bear costume. The bear doesn't like costumes. But everyone's like, I love it. It's so cute. You're amazing. Right on. And I'm like, ah.
I love that. Were,
Well,
were you were you a bear for Halloween?
I was not a bear for Halloween. I was a zombie. What about you?
I didn't dress up for Halloween. Yeah.
Okay. Um, this next poem again is a celebration of awkwardness. Content warning for descriptions of sexual nature. Awkward sex versus no sex. I tried to turn awkward sex and no sex into characters that duke it out. What ended up happening was a queer deconstruction of the distinction between awkward sex and no sex. Often I cannot tell whether awkward sex or no sex is speaking. Here, let me show you. Listen in to their voices. There's no easy explanation for why I can't take off my pants. Don't I look like Peter Pan in my green spandex? Did you know spandex is great for tribadism? I'm writing a thesis called Everything That Keeps Me from Having Sex. Okay, for a moment you may have noticed that no sex was speaking, but that's a rare occurrence. No sex masturbates and gets cum all over some of the documents. Awkward sex wants to know, what is that? Awkward sex does not do small talk or big talk. Awkward sex doesn't do size, but its spine is a ruler. Awkward sex is having sex in my bed when my pair of guinea pigs awaken like the horny troll dolls that they are and start humping each other, and my date's like, what is that bumbling purring sound? And never is the right moment to touch someone after admitting rodent-like critters are humping each other only a foot away from the bed. No sex is enthusiastic about grocery shopping and self-hate. Awkward sex wants to wear my clothes, but so does no sex. They duke it out. Pubic hair is shed. Once, after a poetry reading, an old man came up to me and said, wow, things really have come a long way. Such a young, beautiful lady can write a poem about pubic hair. I wanted to scream, that's genderqueer witch to you, Frankenstein. But I didn't. I shrugged it off.
Should have screamed it.
Um, feel free to cut me off whenever. I have chronic pain and chronic illness, and that's something I write about. So this is called Monday.
Okay.
Today I stopped chanting, this is not my life. Instead, I chant mundane things like, buy Norwegian sweaters. Why is my mind an advertisement? Why are all of my imaginary friends suddenly wearing Norwegian sweaters? I don't go to the support group because I can't face their trauma. Sometimes knowing that others understand makes you feel better, but today I don't want people to understand. I would rather go to a park and sit on a bench and trace the leaves with magical crayons that grow out of my eyelashes. The Economist says we don't have enough variety in our gut flora. I hope you never get so desperate that you give yourself probiotic enemas. I seriously considered a DIY fecal transplant, but decided instead I would eat an all-fruit diet, which only lasted 3 days. I was hungrier than I've ever been because some wacko who sold millions of copies of his book claimed that he cured himself by eating only oranges on top of a mountain. I'm vulnerable. I'm already so vulnerable that I don't need to practice how to be vulnerable. No, this eliminates 50% of TED Talks. Now I realize what my friend meant by gotta make it to the finish line. He meant prepare your belief in life to last longer than your body. Sorry, that was kind of a downer.
No,
Uh,
not at all. All right. So we're at 15 minutes there. I don't want you to read the whole book to people because people got to go to gameoverbooks.com and get the book, right? Green Antelope Fire, you guys go and get that. I'm definitely going to go get my copy. Um, you, a lot of your poems have a theme of blue as an underlying. And you mentioned blue earlier, like at one point everything became blue, I think you said. Um, What is the significance of that to you? Or does it have one?
Wow. Yeah, thanks for noticing that. This is just personal, and maybe I should have explained it or left a mystery, I'm not sure, but growing up, when I got really upset, everything turned dark blue and I couldn't experience anything else. And so that is a reoccurring theme for me.
Oh,
Also,
wow.
the room that they put you in when you're having a meltdown, it's all blue. Like the walls are blue, the ceiling is blue, the floor is blue.
Hmm. I was wondering because recently I wrote a poem um, about the color blue, but I learned that Picasso had something that he called the blue period, where all of his paintings were blue. Um, for some reason, and I didn't read too much on it, but it was interesting to me. So if you've seen a Picasso piece, there's always like so much color in it. Um, but over the years, he changed so much. So I was seeing like you were in your blue period while I was listening to it. So I was like, oh man, that's genius. But yeah, that too is it's nothing. I haven't experienced anything like that, but that sounds very interesting in a good way. In a good way. It's like this creativity that others don't have. So that's pretty cool. Um, I also like your comparison of sex to a creative thing as well, because when you think about it, it really is something that you're learning and doing and making your own. Um, so I really like that comparison. That's awesome. I'm really excited. I would have your book by now, but holiday season. The money's low, but I am gonna go get a copy of that, and I think everyone else should as well. Um, the DIY MFA. How can people, if they want to, join that?
Two options. One, you can go to selfeducatingpoetsnetwork.org, or if you use Facebook, you can look up, it's a group. It's called DIY MFA, parentheses, Self-Educating Poets Network. There's another DIY MFA that like charges you money, so make sure it has the parentheses and it says Self-Educating Poets Network. But just look up DIY MFA on Facebook and you can join, and then you'll be invited. There's actually an event tonight at 7 on ecstatic poetry. Well, we have frequent events and everyone is welcome. So
All right. And just for clarification, because this probably won't go up until tomorrow morning, today is December 1st. So that will be in 5 minutes if you happen to be watching the live version of this on Facebook currently. Um, that being said, since it is 5 minutes to that, I'm not going to hold you. I do want to say thank you so much for coming through. It's been a pleasure to talk to you and to hear your work. You definitely gained a fan today. Um, I have other books from Game Over Books as well. I've got, Catherine Weiss.
yes, yes.
I got her book. I think it's Horse Girls versus Wolf Girls that was with them. Um, great book, great book. But the books that I have gotten from them have been amazing. So just another one in the lineage there. So congratulations. Um, anything that you want people to know about you before we end this? Any advice you want to give out? Anything?
Thank you. This has been a lot of fun, and my advice is to listen to all these podcasts that you've done because you've done such great work interviewing all these people, and you are creating community, and I value this work that you're doing. Thank you so much for supporting artists. And I wanted to encourage people to submit to Gingerbread Ritual. The deadline is early in January. You can go to selfeducatingpoetsnetwork.org and find out about our submissions call. And I would love to publish more poets from all different poetry communities, not just in the Boston area, but even internationally or in the US. So please submit.
Absolutely. Yes, please, please, please submit to the gingerbread review. Did I say it right?
Gingerbread Ritual.
Gingerbread ritual. That's right, because it sounded like a band name. Yes, definitely get submitted to that. So again, I just want to thank you so much. This will be on Spotify and YouTube. I will send you the link as soon as it goes up. Usually takes a lot of downloads. That's why it usually goes up the next morning. But I will send that out to you. And to those of you listening, definitely make sure you make your way over to gameoverbooks.com. You look up DIY MFA on Facebook so that you can get that education. That's a great, great resource for poets because getting an MFA is it's difficult. And support March Penn on their journey. And yeah, um, again, this has been the Out Loud podcast with Red or Green Books and the Out Loud Anthology, which you can get on redorgreenbooks.com. And you guys have a great night, and it is December, so happy holidays.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you for coming through. Have a great one.